Democracy is based upon the conviction there are extraordinary people in ordinary possibilities. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Our topic of discussion today is Sri Lanka's current state of affairs with an emphasis on youth in politics. We've invited 4 guests to our studios this evening as well to discuss and dwell on the topic. Let me quickly introduce them to you. Joining us this evening on the show are Harshan Rajkarana, Member of Parliament from the Samgijana Balawegaya, Sendil Thundaman, Leader of the Ceylon Workers Congress, Chaturanga Singha, Executive Committee Member of the National People's Power, and also Attorney at Law Chiranthi Siranayaka, Systemic Development Practitioner as well. Also joining us this evening to pose questions to our panelists. On to my immediate right is Shanaya Darigama, on to my immediate left is Jayama Ratnayaka, and on to my far left is Sandro Satyajit. This evening on the show, you can send in your questions to the number 071 558 7788. We would love to take these questions to the panelists and get their views on the questions that you pose tonight on Face the Nation, as we usually do. Let me start off tonight's show with Harshan Rajkarana, Member of Parliament of the Samgijana Balawegaya, to talk about the topic Sri Lanka's current state of affairs with an emphasis on youth in politics. Good evening and welcome to the show, Harshan. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year
and your
to
family
you
as well.
Thank you.
Right. Let's start off tonight's discussion with your thoughts on the topic.
So first of all, thanks very much for inviting me for your program and still considering me as youth. Current affairs. I think the main concentration at the moment is the local council elections. Today, the Election Commission announced the nomination dates, and we see the government trying everything possible to not have an election. Even today, the government representation, which is mainly the SLPP and the UNP, they are still talking about and giving press conferences why they should have an election. And certainly, in their view, they say that they should not, the country should not have an election, and the country can't afford an election. So we strongly disagree with that. We believe that there should be an election, there should be the democratic process that is very much needed in a country. And even internationally, I think we will be cornered and we will be blacklisted if we don't have elections and have the usual democratic procedure. So I really don't understand why they want this to happen when we are in such a state where we need all the help possible from the international community. Obvious reason is that they don't want to face an election because simply they know what the result is. And I saw a text message saying that the President Ranil Wickremesinghe doesn't want to get involved in the election. I think probably that's the best for the UMP. I don't think that makes a difference, or probably he knows what the result would be, and then he can obviously say that I didn't get involved and this is the result.
Harshan, very quickly, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Now nominations have been called and the ball has got rolling. Why is the SJB so skeptic about not having an election now? Because everything seems to be in place right now for an election.
So if you look at the SJB, we want an election. We are fighting for an election.
Right.
We went to courts asking for an election. So we are not at all in the back foot.
Right.
We have already started interview processes. We have advertised. We have got applications. So many. I am in charge of that, and the person who's chairing the local council committee. So we are all ready for it. But what I am saying is that the government is skeptical about it. Government is very negative about it, and that's what they say. Yes, if you look at the last month or so, each and every press conference done by the UMP or the SLPP or every interview by one of those people from those two political parties, they categorically say that they don't want an election, and they say that the country can't afford, which is absolute not true.
Right. So we will get back to that when we pose questions, because right now there seems to be why must we hold an election? What is the reason behind holding an election? Because given the fact that does the country need an election at this time of the hour? So we'll speak about all that when we get the ball rolling with the questions that have been directed at the four panelists. Let me now quickly look at the thoughts of Senthil Thunderman, leader of the Ceylon Workers Congress.
First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me for this session and discussion. And basically, youth and representations in the political field is highly necessary. For example, you take what we always feel is if there is a cabinet of 30 ministers, there should always be 15 senior ministers and 15 youth should be. It should be a win-win situation for both. It doesn't, I don't say that, you know, just because you are a senior person, you are more experienced. For example, you can take the former president. He was a very senior person, but the administration, what he did was very inexperienced. So I don't mean to say that the senior people are experienced and youth don't have experience, but what I'm saying is there must always be an equal share. You know, you have a sports ministry and a youth ministry. You can't have an 80 years person as a minister for that. You must have a young and active person. Same way you have a finance ministry, you must have a very good experienced person. And so it should be a mixture of that, and especially on the youths, I would always prefer it should be a 50-50 share of both men and women on it. Women representation should also be equal in that. But the Sri Lankan Election Commission has always insisted criteria with women representation, youth representation. They have that criteria, which is a good criteria. In most of the countries they don't have. So, but the thing is, the people, it's not that, you know, you just bring a youth, somebody, and ask them to make them to contest on the election. You must have people with vision and people with proper idea. For example, you take a minister, he doesn't have to have any qualification, he doesn't even have to be a graduate. But for a driver to be appointed in the ministry to drive for the minister, he must at least have a O level or A level with max. So when a driver of a ministry or a minister should have that, definitely I would say that the minister should also have some educational knowledges on administrative sector, because it's an administrative thing which they are running. You know, they have to guide an SLA, Sri Lankan Administrative Service Officer. So I hope that these things all should be still more having more criterias and more where you can get down, because educated people coming into politics is very less. So I feel that if there's more educated people coming into politics, where they'll have more proper idea about proper administration and more knowledge. It's not that, you know, you just bring youth and he doesn't have knowledge, it's no point him coming into politics. We must get in youths who have knowledge about administration, which will help to develop the countries. You know, you take the Canadian president and you take the New Zealand Prime Minister, and a couple of them, they're very young people. In fact, I think it will never happen in Sri Lanka. In those age people, I don't think they can come. But now to see Canada and New Zealand and those countries are very far ahead of us, because they have given space for people, youths with ideology who have a proper knowledge on this. So I appreciate that this is a good thing that they should be given.
Senthil, very quickly, you spoke about the importance of politicians having education, but if you look at Sri Lanka's history, we've had individuals in the caliber of Ranasinghe Premadasa, who was a street-smart individual. People are still talking about the services that he rendered as an individual in the political sphere in Sri Lanka. So are you saying those who are street-smart should not enter politics?
No, I'm saying 50-50.
Okay.
You must have a 50%, the cabinet, if it's 30, you must have a 50% with youth.
Right.
With the knowledge of administration and all that, and another 50% of a senior politicians who will guide. So it should be a mixture. When you don't have that mixture, and also it should be from every ethnic ratio you must pick, because their sentiments should be represented.
Right.
So if that is done, it's a mixture of a successful. It's like, you know, it's like cricket. The player can't be the batsman. You need a bowler, you need a wicket keeper, you need a field person like that, you must have with multiple talented people in community.
I have a lot of questions to pose to you, Senthil, but I'll hold all that
Sure.
until the second round starts, because you spoke about how different ethnicities should also represent Parliament. I have some questions on that front as we go along. Let me quickly now move on to Chaturanga, Executive Committee Member of the NPP.
Yeah, so my stance today, I think what's been discussed is very clear. So we are at a point where the people has to be given an opportunity to share what they want in this country, because the mandate the previous government had ended last year with the Aragalaya, and a lot of youth especially got actively involved in politics. So we need to understand what politics means. Now this discussion can be very much narrowed to the representation of youth in governance, but what do you mean by politics is youth actively participating in politics, political debate, political discussion, activism. I think over the last 3 decades, last year probably is, or current status of Sri Lanka is the most active youth participation in politics. Because if you see, everybody has a view now. Everybody wants a change. Everybody is looking for a political change, system change, and also an economic system change. So this is, I think, probably the most lucrative era in Sri Lanka where we can talk about youth representation in politics. So 2 things. One is whether the youth get the opportunity to govern, right? The other is whether the youth's expectations are represented in the politics that we do. So both are very important. So when it comes to Sri Lankan politics, when we looked at the current parliament, we have 11% youth. When I say less than 40, if you take an age definition of it. Globally also, the average age of politicians are about 53. So if you take the youngsters in the current political system or the political systems we had, it's based on the family politics. So it's not that it's a representation of the society we got. We always got youngsters into the parliament system and all the governments, but most of them are from, continuing their father's journey, continuing their family's journey. So I think Sri Lankans should know this country has been ruled by 5 families. If you really draw the tree over the last 50 years. And also the youth that we see in the parliament, I don't want to name them. If you take the list of people and you Google them, and you would see their father has been a minister or a MP. So that has to change, because the main parties has to be able to give the general public, the youth, the opportunity to do politics. Right. But currently we have a lot of barriers to entry.
So Chaturanga, you said that family dynasties have played a big role in Sri Lankan politics over the last few years. You say a period between 50 years, and this is a very significant amount of time. My question to you now is, what if the real youth who wants to make a change in the political sphere are not coming out? Isn't that one of the reasons that we don't have proper youth representation in the political sphere in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, so there is 2 barriers mainly. One is our reading about politics, because we have avoided politics as a discussion. So youth does not know what politics means. They see politics as what they see as the people who rule, right? So if you ask the youngsters in the A-levels, raise your hands who want to do politics as a subject, or politics as your next thing is to change the society. Politics is not like a profession that you could select. It's something that you could change the system. So for someone to get into politics, there need to be support. The party that they want to come in has to support them, and also they should have certain amount of willingness and sacrifice to come into. But we have been driven by individual wants and dreams. Our dreams are so big, so that you don't want to see about the others. You try to get, I think in Sri Lanka, you will take minimum 35 years for you to stabilize your life. Right. And then only you can think of, and I'm glad some people are doing politics as the subject, but still reluctant to come into active politics.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chaturanga, Executive Committee Member of the NPP. As I said before, I have a lot of questions in my mind to pose to the 3 of you still, and then we have the lady as well. So let's quickly listen to what what there are two ladies in the room, so we'll listen to one of the panelists in terms of our topic today, Sri Lanka's current state of affairs with an emphasis on politics. So we have attorney at law Chiranthi Saranayaka, systemic development practitioner.
Thank you so much for having me. So I think we can start off by agreeing on one thing. Of course, young people have to be in politics, because I think this tagline of youth participation in politics is something that has been thrown about since independence. Every political party has spoken about it. We speak about it so much as well. And I feel like if the key takeaway from the discussion is that young people should be increasingly involved in politics, I don't think we're really having a fruitful discussion. I think when we're talking about the local council elections and its importance in improving youth representation, we really have to understand why local council elections, this particular local council election, is important. And I think, in my opinion, it's important because this is the first election we're having since the ousting of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, and the first election that we're having in a state of multi-dimensional crisis. So, and secondly, I think it's important because it's going to reflect the democratic expression of the people of this country, especially in light of the rather traumatic events that we have gone through. And I think thirdly, it's important because it's going to be a determination of the party politics dynamics that Sri Lanka is going to sort of experience in the next couple of years or so. So understanding all of that, I really think that young people were at the forefront of the people's protest, and they were a key stakeholder demanding change. But this term change, what it means is something I feel that we don't have a clear idea. And one reason why that is because I personally believe that Sri Lanka has lost its sense of developmental identity. We do not have a sense of developmental plan. There is nothing intrinsically Sri Lankan that essentially binds us. So therefore, I believe that what we see and demand as change is something that's a little vague. But leaving that aside, I think local council elections are important because there is supposedly 8,000 councillor positions that are supposed to be filled, and there's an estimation of 10 billion expenditure for this council elections. And local council elections have always been a platform where the youth quota system has been tested since the 1990s. Then it was reduced from 40 to 20%. There was a bill proposed to increase it to 25, but the rigmarole went on. However, local council elections was a focal point to increase youth participation. So I really think that local council elections are important, especially this election is important from assistance perspective. Sorry, we're going to...
very quickly, Chiranthi, because you spoke about 8,000 plus representatives are going to be elected through the local government elections. Then you spoke about the fact that approximately we are spending around 10 billion. So you say that this is very important at this very juncture, because at that, what the feeling that I got was it's an important juncture in terms of Sri Lankan politics.
Definitely.
You say local government elections are very important. Now, we had a local government elections very similar to this that we will be experiencing in the next few months if there is an election a few years ago as well. Tell me one thing that is etched in your mind that a local councillor has done.
Well, I think that point perfectly brings me to something I wanted to capitalize on. The issue with local council elections is that it has become just part of the party political dynamics of this country, and local council is just like a testing ground to see who is going to sort of succeed in the battleground to reach the higher level. We actually don't see local council as a decentralization of power, an effective mechanism of connecting with people. So I think it's really the fact that, I mean, very honestly, to answer your question, I cannot remember a single thing that is considerable and valuable in my, the constituency I'm a part of that has really, been etched in my mind. And I think that's because when we think about it,
And if so, do we need this?
Well,
if so, do we need this?
Well, I would say that, see, we do not want a situation where there is an absolute centralization of power without, effective checks and balances. And I think the local council is supposed to serve as a check and balance, but unfortunately it's not.
It doesn't happen in Sri Lanka, unfortunately, Chiranthi, if you didn't know. But I want to open the floor for questions from our journalists. Again, right is Shania, left is Jamal, far left is Sandro. We'll start off with the consent of the two males. Let's start off with the lady, yeah? Yes, Shania, please.
Mr. Tholoman, you, in your opening statement, you spoke of 50-50 participation of youth in, in cabinet positions. There's an organization in India called the Swaniti initiative, where they allow youth in the political field to sort of interact with parliamentarians And in response, you have Indian parliamentarians inviting all these young people to sort of get involved in constitution review processes. What is Sri Lanka doing? In that regard, you spoke of the importance of youth participation. What is Sri Lanka doing? What are the initiatives taken already?
I don't think they have any initiatives like that, what you say, because whenever I see they appoint a couple of committees in the parliament, and I think for the last 2 years, 2.5 years, in the previous government, there were a lot of committees appointed. But I don't think none of the committees' decisions were implemented. Just to suppress the situation that time, the how situations, they form a couple of committees and they say we are waiting for the report and all that. And I think after independence, there would have been so many reports of these committees which have got and which are not being implemented by the Sri Lankan government, whichever government had come before. So I think innovative ideas and innovative implementations along with an advice of a senior experienced politicians, only cabinet is the best way to do it. That's what I feel. Apart from cabinet, yes, there are a lot of bodies like the provincial council, local authorities and all that are there. But I feel even if there's a member of parliament, for him to get it implemented in the country law or something like that, even if you have a 2/3 majority in the parliament goes to it, has to go for a cabinet decision and all that. So I feel that's a place where the important decisions of the country is being taken.
So what is the block? What is the stigma against allowing young people in the political field to get involved? What is the issue in Sri Lanka where they are constantly suppressed?
No, that's because when you take an election, if a district has got 20 candidates, I think most of the candidates are senior politicians who have been almost 7 times, 8 times in the parliament. So what happens is the young people, they get 2 or 3 people to get in. So once they come into 2 or 3 people, they are very less in number. So you must have a 50-50 ratio where they also equally represent inside. And that's what will be the option, I feel.
Chaturanga, you spoke about youth activism, especially in terms of the Aragalaya over the past few months, and post people's struggle, we see that many young people in Sri Lanka from across the island, they are actually seeking opportunities in other countries. They are seeking opportunities and to go for greener pastures, if I may put it that way. And if the cream of the crop in Sri Lanka does leave the country, we will be left with little to no choice to even govern the country. For professionals, industries such as industries and sectors such as the healthcare sector, the finance sector and whatnot, for the country to be run in a proper way and also for the country to develop. If we do not have the necessary expertise once this generation decides to retire, we won't have a set of people to take the baton and to move forward and to develop the country. So I think I will leave this as an open-ended question, especially to the 3 gents who are representing political parties, because you can advocate for the people, for young people especially, to remain in the country, give them some sort of impetus to remain in the country without going abroad. Yes, we know that it is tough right now, but what sort of framework, what sort of policies have y'all in your individual party capacities adopted to make sure that these professionals, these young educated professionals, do not leave the country?
So Jamal, I think it's an adverse situation. So like you are pushed to the wall on a decision whether to stay or not. There are 2 things. One is your real income has it's not going to increase, because your nominal income now it's going to get taxed more than what it was, and the food the inflation has gone beyond 80%. So basically your ability to consume is less. And if you are an individual who's aspiring to become someone wealthy or someone who wants to earn certain things, you don't have the ability to consume even. Now we have 3 years of no cars imported, right? So basically it's about lifestyle. So we have degraded the lifestyle so much that people would think, why should I stay? Especially the professions which has demand in the outside the world. So if you take the doctors, right? Our doctors are like 1/4 paid here. right? If you go outside, you have 4 times. If you take IT graduate, you can work here for like a BPO, but if you go outside, you would work for IP company.
Top IT company.
Right? So, likewise, we are in a very adverse situation just because as a country, we don't have a national plan for development. So, when you say national plan for development, that means what are you going to produce? Which services you are going to give? What is your future workforce looks like? So NPP is very keen about that. We have been very clearly articulating we have 5 to 6 industries that we need to uplift and the SME sector for entrepreneurship. So our whole mandate is on education and entrepreneurship. So in that we see we actually can ask, but the situation is so adverse, right? So what we are presenting to the public as of now is that NPP as a party, we have one from a national plan where the development should took place, and that development is underpinned by a manpower plan, human capital. So then it's underpinned by education. So there is no disintegrated policy we have integrated policy. So that anyone who looks at into us will see there's potential. Secondly, where would you expect them to give their opinion and what they want to happen in this country? So we think we are also representative of that. I am also a product of NPP. If there was no NPP, I don't have any other political party in this country to be part of. Because one, either you should have a lot of money, other one, your father should have been in politics, which I don't have both. But anyway, NPP has given a platform. Now we have 4,620 Kottasa Sabhas. And in all those Kottasa Sabhas, more than 50% is youth and female. The ex-JVP members have facilitated for new people to come into those platforms.
So
like
the NPP, in other words, is a part of the JVP? JVP is the main party, but NPP is a platform to do politics. That's what I'm saying. So even our EXCO, we have about 8 to 10 members who are below 40 years of age. Chandra, just because you spoke about family dynasties and because of the fact that your father is not a political minister, you don't have any other option but to join the NPP now, right? I just want to ask Senthil, now Senthil, let's take a look at Jeevan Thondaman for an example. He was a state minister in the previous cabinet. Then look at Namal Rajapaksa for an example. Namal Rajapaksa's father was Mahinda Rajapaksa. Let's look at Kanchana Wijayasekara for an example. Mahinda Wijayasekara was the strongman of the UPFA and the SLPP as well. So if you look at all this, it's true what Chaturang is saying.
These politics inherited.
Yeah, it's right, isn't it?
The law doesn't say a teacher's son shouldn't become a teacher. A policeman's son shouldn't become a policeman. It's nowhere in the world like that. I agree if whatever he says, if it's a nominated post, father is the minister, he nominates his son on a national list, I agree on it. But these are all elected, no? So now Mr. Jeevan Thondaman was elected.
But appointed comes when the cabinet appoints. Now, the president has to make an appointment. Election is okay.
Jeevan Thondaman was not in the cabinet.
No, he was not. He was state minister.
Yeah, he was a state minister.
Now, Kanchana Wijayasekara was at that time was the state minister as well.
Because
Namal Rajapaksa, fortunately, because the father is probably was the minister of sports.
I don't want to comment on Honorable Namal or Kanchana. I'll just tell about my party.
Yeah.
Because we are the plantation community, and whichever government comes, they've always been given a seat for the plantation to be in the part of the ministry or cabinet, whatever is. So the only alliance partner with the government which got through was us. So our party was offered the ministry, and Mr. Jeevan Thondaman was nominated for that, and he took over the ministry.
Yeah, no, but must it be like that?
If somebody else was selected,
mustn't that post be given to someone who's competent to do that? That's what Chaturang is trying to say, right?
No, that's what I'm also trying to say. In the same portal list, there were other 3-4 Tamil candidates. If they had got through, maybe they would have got the ministry. They have not got through, so the only people who was got through was him. So he got the opportunity to get down the ministry.
Chaturang, you are satisfied with the answer?
No, it's like this. I think he's right. Nobody can deny saying that since your dad was, a politician, you can't do politics. It's what it takes in Sri Lanka is power politics, right? It's money and it's power. And it's not about people. We know all this. We are very clear about what has happened, right? So even we had monarchies, right? King's son becoming son, but the country was prosperous. Now we have a system where dads, you have the ancestral change, but the country has not developed. That's the problem. Otherwise, there's no problem, right? So if you are becoming a politician using the power of your, the good name of the goodwill of your father, that's okay. But as long as the country, but what is happening now is the politics is derived or defined by the power and the money you have.
Yeah, so now I want to stop you there.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave Harshan out of this equation completely because Harshan's father was also
my father
a
was
politician
a member
and a former member of the parliament as well.
I think for him the question is how easy it is. How easy it, not that it's wrong.
Yeah.
How easy it is for him to compare to someone.
No, I want Harshan to answer that. Now Harshan,
May I? So, my father was a member of parliament for 33 years. So, after my father passed away, I have now contested twice in the provincial council, twice. So, if you look at, actually, it's a very nice topic to say, oh, it's father and son and all that. But look at the majority in the parliament. Is it father and son? That is what you need to say. It's very nice to say, you can sell these things, right? Oh, it's a father and the son, they are the ones who are doing politics. Look at the majority in the parliament and tell me whether it's a family base. No. These are all nice things to say, right? People, unfortunately, a lot of people in our society would, oh my God, yeah, isn't that true, right? No, that is not the majority. Majority of the SJB is not like that. Majority of the SLPP is not like that. There are cases. There are cases like my family and like few others, yes. There are cases which I think it's up to the people who whether you fit in or whether you, that is not the qualification. But that can't be the disqualification.
Yeah, but what Chaturang is saying is, if you look at Sri Lankan politics, what has happened is, now let's take a look at the SJB for an example, like you have Kavinda Jayawardena,
which is not the majority, my dear. That is what I am trying to tell you.
If I may bring a question.
Let me finish, please. So, it is not the majority. You can have few cases like that. But SJB has 54 members in parliament. Out of that, maybe about 7 or 8 like that. That does not mean that is the majority.
So
and Chaturanga,
so I think,
one second. Chaturanga, and you were saying that SLPP has given the opportunity for you to come.
NPP.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Sorry. NPP, right? You're more than welcome to join SJB. We have a very strong youth representation. I'm heading the Young Professionals Organization of the SJB. We have a very strong youth wing.
So why are you joining the SJB, Chaturang? Why?
No, I mean, it's from a policy perspective,
policy perspective.
Right? So what I'm trying to say is, in terms of money's policy and also what you stand by. So, for example, the SJBs and the SLPPs and UNPs is allowing corruption and the people who are, having these issues to be part of the party.
If someone asks you this question, Chaturang, if someone says, now the NPP is largely affiliated with the JVP, you said that before, you said the JVP is in driving, but if you look at the past of the JVP, 88, 89, the JVP insurrection, 60,000 people were killed, the transformers were attacked, there were no electricity, people were living with fear. When the JVP says, don't go to this area, you can't go, you have to stay indoors. It was like that. So you are okay to affiliate with a party like that?
So what we need to understand is there is certain statements made by JVP also on what has happened in 89 and 89. How they progressed since 1994 is what we want to look at. Now, from example, from the big parties, have they avoided corruption? No. Have they given punishment to people who has done it? No. But JVP has progressed from the era that they were in 80s to democracy, and they are very keen that they will not go in down that path, and they are very clear what their policies look like, and they are very clear what the parliament looks like.
Yes.
Right?
I would also like to add something.
Okay. Can I pick
Yes, absolutely.
Harshalad's brain and come to you?
Yes, no problem.
Chirandil?
Yes.
Saturanga, I mean, yes, I'm happy and relieved that they have moved on from 88 to 89, from that era, right? And welcome to democracy. But my point is, who brought 1994? Who brought Chandrika? Who was in Chandrika Kumartunga's government? Wasn't JVP there? Who brought Mahinda Rajapaksa in 2005? It was the JVP.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't say it before, after 94, all
Everything
this
changed.
happened. And we have reformed. They were part and parcel of this whole thing. Now you can say to market this and all 25 is the same.
Harshan has a very good point. Now, Arun Kumar Disanayake was the Minister of Agriculture.
Yeah.
At one point in a cabinet. So, what has Minister Arun Kumar Disanayake at that time did as a minister in charge? Can you just tell me a few?
Obviously, so the ministries were taken on condition, right? So every time JVP went into a coalition, there was a paper, public paper, presented to the government. This is what. Good example is 17th Amendment. Nobody talks about 17th Amendment. It was JVP who put the blocks to that government and got it done with 10 seats, what they had, right? And when they go into the ministries also, there was 4 ministries and there was a clear mandate why they would and what would they do. And in the agricultural ministry, it's not like today. It was the agriculture, the fisheries, the land, and all that was under Arun Kumar Disanayake, right? So there was a specific plan how to improve agriculture and also the fisheries and also the milk production and all those things, right? Okay. So they were doing a particular great job with the culture that we are asking. No corruption, zero corruption, and also professionals leading from the front what to do. It's not Arun Kumar who decides.
I want to give Sandra an opportunity to pose a question as well, but you wanted to pitch in to this subject that we are talking about.
I kind of feel like we're missing 2 important questions.
Right.
The first is, do existing political parties have internal democracy to allow for a random, let's say a girl from Akurasa or something, to actually come into power without political influence, without money, without, let's say, for the lack of a better word, supporting the party politics, the leaders, the single leader of the party? And the second question that I think we're not asking is, do our current political parties have an idea about what the national youth policy should be? Because since 2014 we haven't had one.
I'll take the premise from that because my question was actually through that part of the question, part of the topic rather. I think we were going around a little bit of a blame game. Coming back to the topic youth, my question is now, for youth to come into politics, there is an internal politics they must fight. I think it's all agreeable. So now we spoke about, I think Mr. Thondaman spoke about ethnic group representatives and female and male 50-50. But my question is, do we see that in your parties? That's number one. Of course, it's not easy to bring this, I understand, because youth representation doesn't matter. And earlier, I believe what I was trying to butt in as well, but I think the misconception was it's not the father and son politics, but rather in your party, the youth representation, is it saturated with family politics? I think that's the question that we didn't go into, the saturation of that percentage. But that question aside, with your party's internal democracy, do you have internal democracy to bring someone who is not a father or a relative or a son of a political party? I'm not saying that being a son of a political party is not a good thing. Of course, we've had a lot of good examples who've led the country, who've led their own electorates, of course. But does, like she mentioned also, a young man or a woman from somewhere who has an idea? Now, we saw the Aragale.
Yeah, so what your question is, basically what Chirant is saying, a girl from Akurasa, can she come into the political fray?
Yes, but
without
influence.
Yes, small addition there, because see, now your parties give nominations, right? Now, are these nominations given out equally? Because if you give them out, do you consider, where is the democracy? My question is, do you have democracy in giving out these nominations to people, to young people? Now, by
But so
youth,
let's ask that question from Harshana.
Yes,
Harshana
please. From the SJB.
is representing, and you're the chairman of the local government.
I'm heading yes.
Yeah, local
yes.
government nomination list, right? So tell us, okay.
So yes, 100%. I would say that there's absolute freedom and democracy and whatnot for a person, for a newcomer, whether it's a girl or a boy, to come and if it's the local council election, starting from there, yes. But as a internal party policy, we have decided to give 25% youth representation for the local council candidates. So that's not by law. We did have till a few years ago. By law, there was I think 40%. It was removed, and 25% female representation was there. But now, in a political party's point of view, yes, absolutely, there's any possibility, every possibility rather, for a newcomer to join.
So Harshana, if I ask you, now there will be mayoral candidates that will be fielded. Let's say Colombo or the urban councils in Moratuwa or so on and so forth. Will there be someone in the age between 19 and 40 as a mayoral candidate that you all will be fielding as a party?
So I don't think being young is the qualification to be the mayor. Why would that have to be like that? No, I'm talking about a whole list. If there's 40 or 50 candidates, we will have 25% of that. But unfortunately, with this new system, right, with this new system, the PR system is gone, right? Unfortunately, that is also a bit of an issue for a newcomer to come forward, because when you're contesting in an electorate, if you get the highest number of preferential votes, you're most likely be given the top position, mayor or the chairman of a Pradesh Sabha. So that is a better chance for a young person to come and show their capabilities. Unfortunately, when in this current local council system, I believe that even if a young guy wins, they will win only in that part of an electoral
No, but Harshana, now last time we all witnessed there were candidates who lost from certain electorates, you know. However, what happened was they were again fielded back to the council by the political parties.
Sorry?
Now, classic example is Kesarlal Gunasekara from the SLFP. He lost his ward.
Right.
But ultimately ended up being a councillor in the Devala Mountain Municipal Council. So then, what is the point of having this ward system?
So this new ward system, that is what I'm saying. But in that ward system, when you are choosing the number of councillors, sometimes you need to put some senior, experienced people along with some youth. So that balance, you might have to do it. So that is probably a reason, and that is probably the reason why you, by law, you're not restricting that. But answering your question, as SJB, as I take full responsibility that the opportunity is given to a newcomer, to a young girl or a boy. That we have had a few days of interviews going on, and there were a lot of new faces coming and wanting for contest this coming election.
So Chiranti, I want to pick your brain, especially since you're a systemic development practitioner. I hope this falls within your scope, especially in terms of what Mr. Rajakaruna said about the person with the most number of votes and the most number of experience coming in and being elected to a certain local government or electoral body. In my candid view, I feel like integrity has taken a backseat in the recent past, where the person who splashes the most cash comes into the local government body or any sort of electoral body over the person who is truly qualified or the one who truly believes in making a change. So that, I think, also borders on introducing campaign financing laws and whatnot.
Definitely.
However, if we come to a more policy-based view, so we know that in countries like Kenya, Uganda, I was just doing some reading, even in countries like Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, they have reserved seats, they have legal candidate quotas, they have voluntary political party quotas for people representing special interest groups, not just the youth, but also people who are differently abled,
of course,
female representation and whatnot. So what sort of policies and frameworks can Sri Lanka introduce to our legal framework to ensure that all of these segments of society are represented in the political sphere?
Well, when answering that question, a concern that comes up for me is all three gentlemen seem to be of the opinion that there is internal democracy within their parties. Then comes the question, why aren't young people getting elected? What really is the barrier to young people entering into these positions of power? So I think that conversation has to happen. But going specifically on a policy angle, especially speaking about quotas, I think there has to be extensive data and analysis and research that has to be done whether the quota system is the most effective way of getting youngsters into politics, because there has been a back and forth about it, especially at a policy and a legal level. So because one big argument that's brought up against the quota system is that it prevents, if we do not have enough candidates to actually present who are young, below 35, it prevents other potential candidates who are above 35. That has been one of the biggest reasons why the 20%, the act that was passed didn't have that mandatory 25% very recently. So I would say in terms of policies, I think it of course has to start at the most base level, which is where we have to really start improving political literacy of our people. I mean, unless and otherwise that happens, I do not think that any policy is going to work in terms of getting youngsters into politics. So I think that's the first policy level.
Srilanka, you spoke about the quota system. How do you make that a permanent reform? Because I mean, you can introduce it, and then the succeeding government can come and repeal it. So I think when speaking about reserved seats, it's a matter of how do you make that a permanent thing that's going to be embedded into the constitution.
Well, the thing is, the difficulty about election laws is including it in a constitution has not been the practice of Sri Lanka since our independence, and I think that's a little difficult because elections are things that have to evolve through time based on the needs of people. However, I do feel that we need to strengthen, just as was mentioned, we need to strengthen the laws and the processes and the systems surrounding elections in general, because I really feel that it is definitely has become more of, forgive my, I would say, curtness, it has become more of like a mafia battleground based on who throws the biggest money, who has the most likes on Facebook. I do not think
that's a preferential voting system, right?
Yes.
Not anymore the local government elections.
Yes, true. But even at a local government election, I really feel that what really dominates is how you are able to sort of capture the people. And unfortunately, capturing the people in Sri Lanka is a very emotional experience, isn't it? It's not a policy-based experience. It's not where, let's say, a local council member will come to your house and say, these are my policies for the next 5 years. I would like you to vote based on that. It's more of the case of like, if I come into power, this is how I'm going to increase the samurdhi. They never tell you how they're going to increase the samurdhi. It's just like a empty sort of promise that's brought forward. So really comes a question of like, one, improving political literacy in general, but also requiring our politicians, our leaders, to actually have what we call like strategic and effective policies that are grounded on practical implementation.
And to be held accountable.
Yes, exactly, because most of the time manifestos are simply like surface level promises saying this is what I hope to do. I mean, that's lovely, but how do you hope to do it?
Never has a manifesto in Sri Lanka been 100% implemented by any political party.
Precisely.
Chaturanga, in your sorry, Shamir. In your opening statement, you spoke of youth participation. Regarding youth representation, I think a cardinal issue is actually the lack of political literacy amongst the youth. And so youth tend to stay away from any kind of political discourse because to them it's like, this vicious cycle of corruption. Younger generation, they tend to destroy their votes at elections and they don't tend to, participate politically. How do you suggest we resolve this issue and increase political interest amongst the youth?
Oh yeah, so two things. One is that at this point also, apart from the main three parties, lot of social activists and organizations has been established. Some has been already funded from democratic organizations, some are self-driven, right? So there is lot of action than which we used to have. And also, what does the political parties also do in terms of youth activism? Now, for example, the JVP and the NPP, we have youth wings. It has been working with student unions, getting people active into the politics, and I think the democracy that we have is the highest we have. For example, if you say 2004 JVP.
That's very subjective.
No, I'll give you. I'll give you stats.
That's very subjective, in your
I'll give you
opinion.
stats to prove. Now we have said
because
it has
now
not
Harshana
happened.
might say they are doing it, they're doing a better job.
Give me a second to give you the stat. In 2004, JVP elected 41 members into the parliament, right? And 30 of them were below 40. And
Vimal Veer was also there. Huh?
yeah. Oh,
How many of them were female?
Huh?
How many of them were female?
So at that point there was very few females, right? I think there was 2 females. One was actually more
From
than
Gampaha
40.
district.
Anjanumma.
That's right.
Right. So what I'm just trying to say is, and also Andro Kumar Desanayake, who's leading our parties from a school in Tambuttegama, from a village, and Vasantha is also from the Tambuttegama school. And I can tell you names like Rai Kelly, Eranga Gunasekara, Kaushalya, Uvindu, Arun.
They are not from rural schools.
No, what I'm trying to say is...
That's wrong.
No, I'm not trying...
You're from Nalanda College.
Yes.
You're an old boy from that college.
Exactly.
From a high elite school in
No, I'm trying to say is not about the school.
The wards will have representation from those areas.
No, I think my point is that we have a democracy that we can come into main stage. I am representing here. And our main stages are given to these people, which I just named. That is a democracy. And it has been proven over and over time, JVP has been able to bring youth into politics. I'm just trying to say, one is that we activate outside, and then you need to give the platform. I want to answer your question about this money thing, right? In our party, we all get equal opportunity on stage. We all get our campaign done by the party. We don't have to spend a single cent. Last year, I haven't spent a single cent from my pocket to get to where I am, right? If any Sri Lankan youth who wants to really come and compete, you have a free platform. You just have to be committed. You have to be willing to educate yourself, align with our policies, and learn. If that is your 3 traits or 4 traits, we have very open.
Sandy, what sort of policies does the CWC have? We know that you all are more centric towards the upcountry. Are you looking at national level politics in the short term or in the long term? And how is the youth representation? I know Jeevan is a very young General Secretary of your party. So just tell us a little bit.
Adding on to that question also just a little. Now I know Stanley, you spoke about the female representation also 50-50 and all. Is that also there in your party, and how are you working to bring that up? If it isn't, is the opportunity open, and if so, why hasn't it been seen? Is also a question I'd like to add on with that.
So actually I would like to say our late leader Honorable Armun Tondaman, when he was the party leader, there was a election which happened on the local body. We have the Sri Lanka's youngest youth chairman from our party. He represents the Kottagal area. He is less than 30. He's from mid 25s to 30, that age. And we also have the first upcountry lady chairman for Muskelia. She is called Shemboli. So we have given equal representations to the youth as well as the lady candidates to become the chairman. And we were the first in the upcountry party who has given the ministry portfolio to a lady candidate. And we have also given a Ministry of Agriculture to Mr. Rameshwaran, who was also youth. So we have whatever the portfolios and whatever the positions we get, we have equally distributed among the youths as well as the...
National level politics, is that on the cards?
Yeah, the national level politics, yes. Now we have, so far we are being elected only from the plantation upcountry community. And the coming days, yes, we are planning to expand in the, wherever we have Tamil speaking people. So we will be expanding in the north, east, and even also...
Yeah, why I'm posing this question to you, Jeeva, Sendil, is you said that in your opening remarks, you said that this is very ethnocentric.
Yeah.
You know, you have Tamil-speaking people voting for the Tamil. You said Muslim people sometimes will align with themselves the Sri Lankan Muslim Congress.
But if I'm not mistaken, he also mentioned diversity in his speech.
So I'm trying to figure out, So now you're saying if there are Tamil-speaking people in the area, we will go there. So aren't you all narrowing it down?
No, what I'm just trying to say is, we have a lot of issues in the Tamil communities. As a national party, there are bigger parties where...
Yes, that's about my question is now, as an upcountry, as a CWC, as an upcountry-based party, can you go to the north and eastern contest?
Yes, we have around almost 1.5 lakh people living in Kilinochi and all the other places, Mannar and all that, who have migrated from the plantation community during the 1980s, and they have migrated and they are living over there.
Kilinochi with around 40,000, 50,000 votes, you will be able to secure a seat, but not that's on a national level. But not as a local government.
We'll forget about the parliament. First, we thought we'll get into the local body election, so that we have a lot of couple of inquiries and members. We continue to do whenever we had ministries, we had continued to do our services in those areas, but we have not got into the political forum. Maybe in the coming days, we are looking forward to expand the Ceylon Workers Congress, so that we will be concentrating in other areas where we have people migrated from the plantation community, and then we're planning to go step by step.
Mr. Thurman, adding on to that as well, now you mentioned ethnic ratios in your opening speech. Now with the national level politics as well, how are you planning to bring in youth of ethnic ratios to represent in your community, in your party rather?
No, like whatever the seats have been given. So now if the election criteria says 25%, we don't stick to that 25%. We go up to 30 or 35%. We go an additional point where we give more spaces for youth to see.
Have the spaces been filled?
Yes, of course, it's being filled. And all our Pradesh Sabha chairmans, I think all are new chairmans, and some of them are even less than 35, 40, and we have all a young set of people working in it, and we expect to expand this still more to the other areas also.
You mean other ethnic ratios as well?
That's right.
Harshana, as a young individual myself, one thing I've realized among my friend circles and the larger community as a whole is that there are actually many professionals who want to help the country, who want to be a part of the governance process, but the deep mistrust they have towards political institutions of governance, political parties, have somewhat hindered them from coming forward and introducing and presenting their plans and their policies for the betterment of the country. As the chairman of the Young Professionals Association of the SJB, how do you plan to address this? I wanted to ask this because you do direct the Young Professionals Association. So what is your plan for this particular issue?
Thank you for your question, because we have a very vibrant team, set of members in our association, which is the Young Professionals Association of the SJB. So we are in few districts, as well as we are in divided amongst some sectors as well. So it is an opportunity for particularly the professionals who are reluctant to probably get involved in politics, maybe to contest.
Yes.
Right? So there are people, there are professionals who want to get involved in politics and give their input, but they don't want to be in the forefront.
The limelight, yes.
So this is the platform where they can come and get involved. And actually we launched the SJB Young Professional Organization a few months ago, and these different sectors they all drafted their policy, and those that draft was given to our leader, the opposition leader Sajid Premdas, and we have continuous discussions on particular topic, or sector. Every Tuesday at 2 p.m. we meet at the opposition leaders' office, and we have this policy meeting on these different topics. So this is a great opportunity for people to come, and you don't have to be in the limelight, you don't have to contest, but you can contribute in the way that in a way that your proposals are actually practiced when we are in government.
So Chaturanga, does the NPP also and the CWC, do you have any sort of platforms, any sort of organizations that are in place to encourage young professionals?
So our way of politics is about empowering the village, right? So we start from Kottasha Sabha. So as I told you, 4,000, and now we have 15 members in each of these 4,000 as committee members. So plus multiply that, you can see number of people who have newly engaged with NPP, and most of them are youth, and also professionals, and also they have their own expertise in these areas of the village. And then we have the NIO, National Intellects Organization, as the professional body which do policy on this. Policy book is 2019. Now people talk about policy. We were the first to give national 10 policies, and we are keep on building them. So there is opportunity there. And also the SME sector. We have the entrepreneurs and the business community now getting together to support NPP.
This is 2019 presidential election. This is not
so you're
something
building
that
on
was
that
done later on.
No. So because
and it is not the first.
This is not the first.
This is not the first. Even we had, our candidate also had a policy document.
No, it's not comprehensive as this. If people
That's
read,
subjective, isn't it?
no, you can read, right?
No,
so you
can read very well.
can have line items as policy, whereas a policy is an integrated policy.
I think what we have to agree upon is your political party is supreme to you. as such.
Probably it's the first time in their political party they put a policy document.
No, I think people can read no policy. When you say policy, it has to have the problem defined, the root cause defined, the solutions defined, the activities defined. I don't think any political party.
I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and tell me one. You said you spoke about 10 policies.
Yeah.
Tell me one policy that addresses all these problems.
So there is no one policy that addresses.
No, you said 10, there are 10 main policies.
Yes. So when you say policy,
and tell me. No, I'm asking you. Tell me one policy that addresses the problem, the root cause, the alternatives, and the way forward.
Okay.
All these four.
So I'll just take one.
No,
I'll just say that. Okay, let's take something like health. Just give me a second.
Until you get your thoughts, can I
so
switch to?
Yes, please.
Switch to.
I'll come back.
Sendil now.
So what he asked was about that. We have a institution called Tondaman Foundation, Saumyamurthy Tondaman Foundation.
Right.
It's a semi-governmental institution where we have almost around 40 centers inside the plantation community where they don't even have internet facilities. We have through the satellite the internet connected, and we have a lot of training programs running there in those centers for the development of the youth and all that. From that, they upgraded to, we have another at Hatton called Tondaman Vocational Training Center,
Right.
and we also have another one cultural center at Rambada. So they are upgraded to that. From that, they are again taken forward to other whatever things they like and all that. Even if they are interested in politics, they are most welcome to enter from that. They get upgraded. So we have because the estate, the people live on a cluster.
Right. Yes.
So when they live on a cluster, one man becoming a engineer, the rest everybody will like to get into that. One man becoming a doctor, the rest everybody like. So we guide them through those lecturers, and we have part-time trainers there, and we give whatever books they want and whatever internet facilities they want. All that we do, because otherwise they have to come to, everybody has to come to town. Some estates, for them to come to Badula town from their area, it's like somebody from Colombo going to London. They will not have proper bus route or logistics and things like that. So we thought, let us shift these facilities inside the estate for the sake to bring out the youth. So these are the things which we are doing through the foundation.
So,
Yes, quickly I'll take. So if you take health, so there are fundamental issues with the health system. So in terms of non-communicable diseases, the private spend is increasing, and the primary health has broken down. So if I take the main issues that we identified in 2019, one is the primary health, that is the health that is close to your house has broken down, and everybody has to come into a main hospital. And in terms of the administrative issues in the hospitals,
No. Chaturanga,
Yeah.
I'm asking you the problem,
yeah.
the alternatives,
Yeah.
and the way forward.
So that's what I'm saying. So the first is the problems we had, right?
The
we have
problems with the primary.
primary. We have
And,
that.
What
Swami,
is
just to
alternative?
question that, just to add on, this is from 3 years ago,
Yeah.
before the economic crisis,
Yes.
before
That's what I'm trying to
every
say. So
change
that's why I
happened.
said we have this framework and we are
Because
building the
Chaturanga,
new one.
Can I be very honest with you?
Yeah.
As a journalist, I have read the election manifestos of all political parties.
Okay.
And none of the political parties had these three aspects fulfilled as a strategic direction for the country. Now let's take a look at the Gotabaya Rajapaksa manifesto. It says by 2030, in 10 years, they will go to a complete agriculture, organic free, but
No plan.
no plan. So I've read this manifesto as well.
So you have read this.
Yeah, I've read this manifesto as well.
then-
And this manifesto doesn't articulate the strategic direction the country has to take. I think the only comprehensive manifesto that was issued in 2019 was from the SJB on the women's manifesto, that was a charter that was issued. That was a little bit more strategic.
So
in
we
terms of
had
the-
not only women's charter, youth charter.
Yes,
and
I
so
know,
on.
but the women's charter was a little bit more comprehensive than the other charters. So this is the problem. You know, we can come here and debate about the problems until the cows go home, but the real issue is, does the political parties in Sri Lanka have a strategic direction in the longer run to drive the country towards success? Because now, as Sandra said, this is a manifesto that you're showing in 2019.
Yeah.
Today, this is outdated. Let's not even talk about
But
this.
in fairness to Chaturanga, he said that they have been developing on
So
those
what I
points.
basically
If you
say
can-
is, at this point, we are very clear about the 5 problems we have and the solutions also. We have been verbally saying it, but we had been written. So this January end we will be
No, because you said about 2019 manifesto. I'm saying this manifesto doesn't have
No,
that.
this is
That's what I said.
What I say
Yeah.
is manifesto and policy is different. Now policy is a long shot.
No, you showed this and you said we have done this
Yeah.
for the first time, but that's
Yeah.
not the case.
So what I was answering his question where there's NIO who, if you want to
Right.
join in policy development, there is no NPP policy or a JVP policy. If you want to give your input to this policy, there's NIO, you can be part of it, and there is enough youth, possible youth groups that you can, and even the Aragale groups. Now the people who are part of the Aragale, we are having various conversations to see how they can contribute to NPP, and also we can align and go forward with
Right.
minimum agreements.
Speaking of youth, Mr. Chaturanga, I'd like to direct a question to Ms. Shiranti. Now, I think earlier yourself, we spoke about the deterred culture of politics. Now, I think this by deterred culture means the blame game, the ego, the lack of humility to compromise, I believe, right? Even when it comes to a small conversation. Ms. Shiranti, what do you think that the youth have the tolerance? Is it that the youth are backing away from this culture, perhaps even reflected a few minutes ago here itself, that this is just a petty business where you can't even compromise with humility? Is that why the youth, the youth that is, I think Jamal also mentioned, the educated youth, we have a lot who are educated, who have shown their colors, because even if you take a small example, if anyone achieves something big outside of I think Australia, UK, we saw 7 Moons, the book by this gentleman,
Shahan Karnatilaka.
Shahan Karnatilaka, for example, just because he was recognized outside of Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka has this culture of, hey, he's Sri Lankan, and we feel proud of it. But the culture here in Sri Lanka, as of now, the politics comes into the youth. Do the youth feel like they shouldn't be entering this system because they want a new system of humility, of compromise? Do you believe that?
Well, I really think that it's really a two-way process. Why I say that is because often when we talk about youth in politics, we keep saying it is the responsibility of the parties to get young people into power. But really it comes also the question whether young people are ready themselves, want to be accountable and want to enter into governance and politics in the first place. Because I really feel that, I mean, just as much as political parties, systems have to encourage young people, youngsters are also, I don't think they're grooming themselves to take up leadership. But why I believe that is because if you take a look at like this particular conversation, this versus let's say something like a telenovela on Sri Lankan television, what is likely to get more views? Is it the fact that, you know, young people are actually going to listen to something or conversation of this nature and critically think to themselves, what is my role in making Sri Lanka or making sure Sri Lanka achieves its potential? So I feel that that dimension is also there where young people are not essentially taking accountability in terms of their individual contribution to Sri Lanka's development journey. And one reason why that is because I don't think Sri Lanka actually has a development identity anymore. If we ask a Sri Lankan what is development for you, I'm sure they're going to essentially say it's economic growth. Why is that? Because the neoliberal capitalist system that we're in has always told us that development is economic growth. But what essentially about...
No, but I tend to disagree.
Okay, right, of course.
For a reason, we have seen development in Sri Lanka. If you look at the Gamudava, if you look at the Mahavali project, if you look at how the container terminals were built by Lalita Zuladmudali at one point, we've seen development. Giving the devil his due credit, we've seen development during the Mahinda Rajapaksa era as well with regard to infrastructure development. Development for Sri Lanka is nothing new. But the problem right now when we speak about development per se is the fact that how political party representatives have got involved in corruption. Now that is why the people went onto the streets last year demanding for change, isn't it? Isn't that the case?
But if I may add, I think since it came to this particular point, yes, we have seen development. We've seen mega highways, we've seen airports, ports, whatnot. But one thing, in my personal opinion, we haven't seen is societal development, personal development as a whole.
And also there's a difference between growth and development. They're not the same thing. Development as a concept actually is very multidimensional. I mean, even if you, for example, let's say have the Mahavali project, how are we going to reduce the farmers that are going to kill themselves because they can't pay back their loans? That is also a component of development.
Have we truly moved forward as a society?
Yes, because I mean, for example, we're talking about the number of people that are leaving Sri Lanka, you know, looking for better pastures. We always speak about the white collar workers. What about, the blue collar workers? What about the labor intensive workers that are leaving the country? I mean, it came to a point where the incumbent government actually came and said, go out of the country, find money, send it back to us, save us. So are we exporting labor? Have we actually fallen to that level? Are those not the questions that we have to ask? I mean, it's going to come to a point where we won't actually have a person who will be able to, let's say, work in like the estates or the farms, because that is essentially where our food production lies. So
are you trying to say that there shouldn't be farmers?
No, not at all. What I'm saying is that when we actually, you know, Sri Lanka, as any other country that was a colony, what has happened to us is that we actually have gotten lost in translation because we were colonized and then we were brought into a world that we were never part of, you know, creating. So I don't think Sri Lanka actually has like a development identity that we can say, okay, this is the journey we are heading. I mean, with all due honesty, gentlemen, if I was to ask you, how would Sri Lanka be?
You can ask that from Harshana, because Harshana has been in parliament for some time now. And Sendil's political party has been in parliament for many decades.
So I think
you can ask.
When it comes to the development piece, right, it basically comes back onto production, right? So if you will look at even the developed nations from 1800s to the late 20th century, the country had a plan what they are going to produce. There's a core competency, so you can select what industries you are going to do. Now, without plan, no unplanned, Sri Lanka also have 5 or 6 core competencies that has been developed, like the apparel industry, the IT industry, the export agriculture, the ports or the services, and then the tourism, right? Say those 5. So where did we had a national plan to take tourism to 8 billion? When did you have a national plan to bring apparel industry to 10 billion? When did you have a national plan to bring IT to 5 billion. When I say that, that is why I say policy never is a single, it's integrated. So if you have that, that is where your education policy will fall into. That is where your foreign policy will fall into. That is where your trade agreements and all that will fall into. That is where your support systems, the legal systems, the ease of doing business, all that falls into.
But sometimes, Chaturanga, you are part of the NPP, but your lead political party, like the JP, when the UNP in 2016 onwards were trying to sign free trade agreements with Singapore and India, your political party was one of the political parties who opposed those moves. Now you are coming here on this very show and saying, where are the free trade agreement policies?
So you take the free trade agreement and you, now in Sri Lanka, can you name 20 items that is compatible in globally? So if you don't have enough items that you can send out.
And that is why you signed free trade agreements.
No. You have to have a plan to develop your products lines. Then only you go and open yourself up. Otherwise, what will happen is you just open it up, and then those goods will come here, but nothing would go from here. Now,
but there has to be controls. That is why I don't think.
So that's what is a free trade agreement. When you say a free trade agreement, the benefit of the free trade agreement is when there's a country has a production plan, a pipeline, a technology, a research that's going to develop. This is a pipeline we are developing, so it's easy for us to take the Indian market.
Let's pose the question, Harshana, what have you all been doing?
Sorry, just one thing though, because I mean, it's naturally going to come to this. My biggest question is, yes, everyone has an idea of, okay, this is the dimension we want to go into, but are the political parties willing to work in the next 10 years, 15 years together?
Let's pose that question to these two gentlemen. Let's start off with
whether we are willing to work together.
Willing to do that consistently. Like when power keeps shifting, how will national politics continue?
Actually, what I analyzed is the rich has become richer and the poor has become more poorer. That's what has happened in Sri Lanka.
True, that divide.
So actually, the poor should become rich. It's gone the other way around. The poor has become more poorer and the rich has become more richer. So when I just did a small analysis from my party and all of us, we have the best minerals of the world. We have the best marine life developments in Sri Lanka. We have the best fertile lands in Sri Lanka. We have the best precious stones throughout the world. We have very good water resource. In spite of that, we still lag behind countries like UAE, where 90% is a desert. And we still lag behind that. I feel that proper administration and policies and all that are curtailing the development of Sri Lanka. Whatever political party works together till last, I'm just trying to say, even the precious stones, there is a validity of life. Even minerals, there's a validity. When for example, there have a lot of minerals which were being used for this plasma TV and LED TV. Now, that time, we were not allowed mining. I understand that those were not allowed to mine and things like that. A lot of restrictions with limited quantity and all that. Now, even you give license, nobody is going to buy those minerals and all that. So, whatever resources we have is being unutilized. Only if the resources what we have, if we utilize itself, I think we can come out of our debts and all that.
So Sendil, let's talk about another vital industry, the plantation
Can we
industry.
listen to Harshada's thoughts also on this?
Yeah,
Then
sure.
Come back to.
Yeah. So I believe all this is true, but the biggest problem we have, I think it's corruption. I think that we need to somehow work together to completely stop that. I think that
all in agreement,
those are the things that we can agree. I'm saying these
At least as a start.
yes, we need to do that.
Where is this corruption, Mr. Asha?
In every sphere there's corruption. I'm not talking only about politicians. I'm talking about even every other sector. Politicians are in the limelight.
Bureaucrats are involved in this.
100%. So these are the things that we need to look into. We have to make sure that there are independent commissions and they are actually independent. And they have the teeth to actually do something about it. We have seen the bribery commission being there for, I don't know, decades. But what has actually happened?
But isn't it the political leadership?
100%.
So because
that not only that, but that is very much needed.
Now, Chaturanga might ask you, now you all have been also in power. What have you all done about
And
it?
everyone has promised to end corruption. That has been like a
that is what I'm saying. So
Now, Mr. Chaturanga may ask you.
no. I'm saying we did have a lot of court cases.
No, but Harshana, during 2016, the
Let me explain.
Yeah.
I am saying it wasn't perfect, but there were a lot of court cases that was not only one. There were so many other cases, but unfortunately, what happened after 4 years? One issue is the time that takes for all these cases. You know, actually, it takes about 5 years for a court case to really start, right? That is the reason that we put trial and bar, special court cases. We went to that level. We took about 3 years for us to start that process.
Our understanding
Right?
is a little different.
Right? But and also, now after the government was changed, what happened? All these cases were taken off from the Attorney General, from the Bribery Commission.
Yeah, so let's talk about the way forward. I want to pick the brains of all four of you. Now we talk about the problems, we know exactly what the issues are, but what is the way forward as a nation? Harshan, will start off with you.
I'll concentrate on the corruption matter that I was talking about.
Yeah.
So
If we can bring in youth as well, because that is the topic at hand. Lots of youth are watching.
yeah, I'm sure, but this is completely a different thing.
No, that's okay.
Because youth also don't
this is
much like to come into politics because
but
of the
this-
corruption.
Yeah, absolutely.
there.
And when I'm talking about this, like you said, it'll benefit the youth.
Of course.
Right? So the corruption, I'm talking about these institutions, it has to be totally independent and political interference has to be zero. And you have to see it. When you see a politician or a high-level civil servant being imprisoned or taken to book, only others who would even think of some sort of corruption wouldn't want to get involved. So unfortunately, we have not seen in our era. So we have to make sure that these institutions are completely independent.
So, Sanil, your thoughts?
My thoughts is we don't have to go around asking money throughout the world here and there, give us money, give us money. If we utilize our resources itself in a proper way, in a proper way, I think we are self-sufficient to overcome this situation. I think hardly in a year we might need of around 12 billion USD for our recurrent expenditures and things like that. $1 billion a month, that's what I think in a rough scenario. Now with like the tourism sector, the tea sector, with the dollar rate which has gone up and all that and everything, and with our resources which are a lot of untapped resources. We touch all this, I think we can easily make it, but I think nobody had the intention of making it. That's what I feel, that intention of making it, they're very, very comfortable with what was coming. Like, we had revenue coming from migrant workers, dollars coming from that. Then we had dollars from tourism. Then we had dollars from garments. We had dollars from tea industry and rubber industry. When the COVID came, I think the migrant workers were sent back. So we had a hit there. When the COVID came, I think the tourism dropped. We had another hit there. When the COVID came, I think the garment exports, logistics, everything stopped.
It was only the tea industry that was standing tall.
No, that also our former president, he stopped the fertilizer. So, at a single stretch, everything was stopped. So, Sri Lanka didn't have a reserve. So, I think people didn't have a plan to have a reserve in Sri Lanka. So, they were just running. If they get 10 rupees, they are spending 10 rupees and just keeping on running like that. I'm saying the government. The government didn't have an intention to have a reserve. So, because 30 years there was war going on. And after the war, I think Honorable Mahinda Rajapaksa's period, I would prefer it was a golden era for development. And that time they should have reserved some funds adequate funds in case of emergencies like this.
Very small thing, Mr. Thanuman. Now, so you're saying that without going outside the country for money, you're saying that despite all the power cuts, despite the stagflation and the high inflation rates that turn stagflation, we can still recover in a short period of time by self-sustaining, is it?
Yeah, with our resources alone.
We can.
Yeah,
so
with our resources alone. Hardly we need around $12 billion a year for balancing out with our revenue. I think
that 12 billion is minus the debt prepayment.
Exactly.
Yeah, debt prepayment. But
because our monthly average, averagely we need approximately $1.6 billion a month to live a comfortable life. Like,
but with $1 billion we can manage.
We can manage.
Yeah, we can manage.
But if it's 1.5 billion or if it's 1 billion, revenue also has to come in, and then we have to have debt repayment also. We shouldn't forget about that. So that's also a big concern.
Yeah, of course. Now with the restructuring debt with countries like India, and now I think even China, they are coming forward for some debt restructure and things like that. I think I don't think no country in the world will come and catch us by a neck and say no, pay it by tomorrow morning. Yes, we are defaulted. Yeah, we have
China might do that.
I don't think. I think China is very smart.
Right.
They want to put 2 rupees and take out 20 rupees. So they don't want to catch us for the 2 rupees. They still think that we can recover, because if we are a country with nothing, without any resources, yes, I agree on that point. Yes, they will try to bargain now. Okay, I'm restructuring your debt. I want another port. I want another airport. Or, I don't think any country will come and invest money in Sri Lanka without having the intention that they can take it back. Every country they are paying they are bringing in their taxpayers' money.
Right.
So they are answerable to their own country. So I think their own country people. So I think they are coming under the influence that yes, we put 2 rupees, you can take back 20 rupees. So in that case, my assessment is that we are self-sufficient. Only we have to change down our policies and make it United Arab Emirates, the Dubai, they give work apart from their people also to people throughout the world. Now, our country you take, we don't have people for our work for our people itself. Then how are we going to develop our country? So, we have to change our policies, and I don't feel that's wrong in that. To this crisis point, we have to change, and that will make Sri Lanka self-sufficient.
Chaturanga, your thought?
Yeah, so I think we are very clear that we are bankrupt, right? So we have 100 billion debt from the local and the foreign debt.
Officially.
Officially. And we now we have to
100 billion, what do you mean?
$100 billion of debt for government.
It's 52 billion US dollars and 36 billion US dollars equivalent local currency.
Yeah.
So we are almost at 80, around 80.
So I think I'm referring to the central bank update to the debtors. So it says 100.9 billion. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that means that we have not invested in places that the returns would generate. So the development, as she said, we have not developed enough in terms of increasing our production, increasing our export, reducing our imports, and also the redistribution of this the money that we created to enrich the lives of the people. So going forward, we still don't see a plan that what kind of exports we would increase. We don't see a plan what kind of imports we would reduce. Now we are going to import eggs also, right? So what we are saying is we need to have this national plan first. We all can agree on that, right? We all can agree to say, okay, these 5-6 industries we are going to export and expand, and we are all going to support it. Our education is going to support it, and then we need to have the workforce that's ready to do that. So we have to put money in education. If you don't put money in education, the problem of richer getting richer and the poor getting poor is going to happen, because our youth, 80% of the youth does not have higher education opportunities. And also, in terms of these two, we have another problem, the budget deficit, right? So you have the fiscal deficit and you have the budget deficit. So government has to restructure and reform into a way that we can manage with tax income, or we need to ensure that the government is productive enough to create more income. That income should deliver taxes. Now currently what we are doing is we are shrinking the economy one side, and we are shrinking all the income earners, and we are not doing anything to reduce the government expenditure. We are not doing anything to restructure the inefficiencies in the government. So That is the second thing. Thirdly, we have to move into an economic system where the development is spreaded. That means we have to establish the SME sector. We have to, take the development into the areas where the development has not taken place. So with this visionary plan, we all can agree. Then we can go into a foreign organization, a country, even IMF to say that we need temporary funding. I wouldn't agree that we don't need foreign funding. We would need certain amounts to survive. But that amount also, before the restructuring, we need to have a national plan.
Right.
And that national plan is something everybody should be working for, not only the government, the people who is in Aragale, people who is abroad in Sri Lanka. We need to have our investment plans clearly to say Sri Lankan expats now invest in this. Now we have 5 projects to invest. Right? These are the value-adding businesses or the companies we are going to do. And we need to help entrepreneurs to start business with a vision. When that vision is established by the ruler, and the ruler is non-corrupt, as you said, then it's transparency and there's trust. People are going to work. We are not going to work 8 hours. We are going to work 16 hours.
Yeah, but
right?
Chaturan, the biggest problem right now is look at the corporate income tax.
Yes.
Corporate income tax is 30%. Look at the export sector tax, which was at 14%.
So who would be induced to do business?
Who will be induced to do business?
And
look at the interest rate, 33%.
So that's why I'm trying to say.
And interest is not, loans cannot be taken by a normal individual.
And there's
somebody would have to
invest. No, and there's so much red tape when it comes to the BOI also. For ease of doing business, there's so much red tape. So I think
again it comes to corruption. I wouldn't agree with Harsha on this. That it's tough. It's not tough, right? In any organization, no sooner you change the head of the organization who's non-corrupt and ready to take action. Any organization, if your board is corrupt, if your chairman is corrupt, everything is going to fall. As soon as you change, Singapore did that, right? Singapore brought in a team and who is professional, who's transparent.
Well, let's
right?
leave that thought. Let's leave the thought for a moment. Chaturang, I just want to quickly
I'll end this.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, it's not impossible. Within a year or two, we can end corruption in a way that no corruption would take place. I'm not saying we can recover all the money that was stolen, but we can put a framework with credible, transparent people on top. That everything will start changing.
So Srilanka.
Sure. So I think we need to start by acknowledging that this multi-dimensional crisis that we're in was long time coming. Even if it didn't happen now, it would have happened in 3 to 4 years, because every successive government has repeated the same patterns that the 3 gentlemen have spoken about. But specifically because we're talking about increased participation of youth in politics, I thought that I'll actually focus on that as my end statement. I really think firstly we need to sort of incentivize youth political literacy, especially through our education system, because we're not producing active citizens, we're just producing people who take part in exams and just pass with qualifications. And then I also think that political parties have to take accountability for using young people as a force of disruption. We still haven't spoken about, for example, the amount of political influence that's there at a university level, at the inter-university federations. And I think that is a big problem that we have to address. And another thing is that I really think that young people also have to take individual accountability for the fact that they have to contribute towards the development of the country. I mean, I understand times are tough, but at the same time, running away from the problem is not going to get us anywhere. And I think the final thing is that young people should not repeat the same voting behaviors of our predecessors, because if we also vote based on emotions, we are all part of the problem, I believe.
Thank you very much, Chiranti. Thank you very much, Harshan Rajkar, a Member of Parliament of the Samik Janabala, for joining us this evening. Sendil Thunderman, leader of the CWC, Chaturang Abir Singh, Executive Committee member of the National People's Power, as well as Attorney at Law Chiranti Saranayake, for joining us this evening on Face the Nation.
Thank you.
It was a very fruitful discussion, and thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening on the first show of the year. So a happy new year to all of you and your families. Let the country prosper at the end of the day. That should be at the heart of our discussions and all that and more. Thank you very much, Shania. Thank you very much, Jayamal, and thank you very much, Sandro, for joining us this evening on the show. I leave you tonight with a quote, as I always do. This is a brand new year. What would be life if we had no courage to attempt anything new? You are the youth of this nation. You have the courage to take action, decisions that matter to you and the nation as a whole. Take care and good night.
සිව්දෙස සිසාරා විමසා දැනුවත්ව දොරින් දොර ඇවිද ළඟට ගොස් විමසමින් ඇත්ත ඇති සැටියෙන් දැක ජනතාව සමග ජන දුක නිවන හැමෝගෙම ගම්මැද්ද රට නගන ජන පෞර
මිනිසුන්ට කන්න නෑ උද්ගමනය 100%කින් වැඩි වෙලා විදුලි කප්පාදුවක් ජනවාරි මාසය තුල යන්න කිසිසේත්ම අපි කටයුතු කරන්නේ නැහැ.
දත්තු නැහැ කියවන්න නැත්නම් අලුතෙන් ණය දෙන්නේ කවුද?
දැන් නමට වාමාංශික සල්ලි එන්න දකුන්නේ.
කාරුණ්‍ය මර්ධනය කිරීම වහා නතර කරන්න.
ෆයිනල් කාල් සතියේ දිනවල සවස 6ට.
වැදගත්ම දෙයක් තමයි ඒ ලැබෙන ආදරය සෙනෙහස.
වංචාකරුවා පිට රටක වෙන්නේ නමුත් වංචාවට හසු වෙන්නේ මේ දේශීය ඉන්න පුද්ගලයා.
ඔන්ගෝයින් ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් වලට දෙකමාරක සමාජ ආරක්ෂණ බද්දක් ගැහුවා. ඒකෝට දැන් අපි මේක මිල කරලා නැහැ.
විදලිත තොල සහ තල්ල සහිත දරුවෝ.
මේ ප්‍රතිකාර නිසියාකාරව සිද්ධ වුණොත් 100%ක්ම මේක හරියනවා.
අර නෝමල් මට්ටමට ගේන්න පුළුවන් ලෙවල් එකක් තියෙනවා.
සුසුම්වලට හීන පොවන තරුවල ගෑති හැඟුම් දහස් කතා කියයි නුඹ ගැනම නිති රහස් එක්ක හිත හුලන ඇස්වලට ඇබී හීනවලට පන දෙනවද නුඹ කවදා හරි තුල්ලතර නවතින්න සිටී කොතෙක් දුරක් වුවත් සසරේ නුඹ එක්ක